listeners. Welcome to the Lone Screenplay Nominee Podcast, where we talk about films that were solely nominated for an Oscar in the writing categories. I'm your host, Matthew Anderson, and today we have Saleah Blancaflor back on the show. Welcome back, Saleah. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back. I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you were back. You were first on for 20th Century Women
hmm
last year. It might have been like one of the earlier episodes, and yeah, I have some questions just like that one. I did. I have some questions about this one because I'm interested in picking a little bit of the brain of like why was this the one that you chose. But yeah, we'll get down to that down the road. It's been a while since we last chat in person. Because as we talked a little bit about before we got on here about the fact that most of our communication has been through online interactions and less through video calls like the one we're doing right now. So I assume there's been a lot that's gone on since we last spoke.
Yeah, no, a lot has gone on. It's crazy to think that I was on, like, that was probably what, like, like maybe this time last year, or maybe like a little before then. I don't know. It's crazy. Yeah, a lot has happened. I mean, I'm still writing, which, you know, I'm doing a lot of that. Still watching a lot of movies, trying to keep up with all the new movies. I know we were just talking about a few of them. So yeah, nothing too crazy going on though. They're all good things for the most part. So.
Yeah, and you heard a little bit of my ranting on Alien
Yep, right
Romulus.
before
Oh, and
it.
yeah, and for the record, for anyone wondering, we did have to record this show a bit late just because my previous guest, I won't mention who the person's name was, they wanted to do in Bruges, but at the last minute, I had to cancel it altogether just because we had technical difficulties and there was just no way that we could record the episode at all. So we'll cover in Bruges down the road, maybe with the same guest, hopefully, or with a different guest, if whoever it is. But we'll get down to that road. And that's why I haven't posted anything recently, and also just because of work as well. I'm now working at a retail job over at Walmart, and yeah, that's the only thing that's changed for my end. Is just I got a job now, and that's that. But everyone on here already knows, except maybe Saleah, which we haven't talked about over the
I think I
online
knew. I
interaction.
think you.
Yeah.
I didn't
Oh,
know
okay.
where it was at, but I think I remember you telling me you started a new job because I knew you said it was the schedule was a little crazy and that it was in retail. So.
Yeah. So I didn't write this question down, but I figured it would be around. I guess just to tie in a little bit with our recording, if you don't mind. Usually when I get a guest to come back on, I try not to go with the same typical questions of like, who are you, where you've been, because or like what what's your favorite film and such. Because I feel like that's a question that those are the kind of questions I would ask for a new guest that I would have come on. And just like Miles, I'm just going to ask a very specific question in relation to our movie. Um, do you have, and with About a Boy, which is the film that you chose for
hmm
today, and we'll get into all the fun stuff and all of our thoughts on it. I wanted to ask for you personally, what is, with About a Boy being an unconventional Christmas movie, somewhat. What are some of your favorite Christmas movies you'd like to watch? Even though it's a weird question to ask, especially since we're recording this like August 20th, and we're not even
Yeah,
close to Halloween at all.
yeah. Well, we are closer to, I guess, to the holidays now that we're kind of at the tail end of the summer. But yeah, no, that is a
Yeah.
good question. I actually love talking about holiday movies. And you're right, is kind of an unconventional Christmas movie with like the song and just it taking place in Christmas. I know there's this whole debate of like, is it a Christmas movie if there's a Christmas scene in it? I
Yeah.
don't know, but some of my favorites, I mean, just like off the top of my head, like I know it's not like an original answer by any means, but I've always just loved the first two Home Alones. Home Alone and Home Alone 2, I feel like are just kind of classic Christmas movies that I like love watching with like friends or family. Anytime it comes on TV during the holidays, if we're not doing anything, I'm always like, gotta watch it. So I feel like those are two that are always like kind of classic holiday movies in my, I guess, like lineup of classic Christmas movies.
You didn't like Home Sweet Home Alone,
I don't even
the
think I
Christmas
watched
classic?
that.
I didn't either. I had
Yes.
no desire whatsoever,
Yeah.
even if even if the kid actor from Jojo Rabbit was in it, not the main
Oh,
one,
I
but
didn't
the
even
other
know he was
one.
in that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It and yeah, I also found out that it was directed by Dan Mazer, who was involved with the the Borat films.
Oh, really? Ugh, that's so funny.
Yeah,
I'm learning things about that movie more than I've probably ever would have known
yeah.
if I hadn't looked it up
So
myself.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, no, that's why I was on my phone. It wasn't just because I got a text. I'll just randomly check. No, I was actually like, what was the title of that new
That
Home
other one,
Alone
yeah. I mean, I
film?
remember
Yeah, the
hearing
other
about
one.
it, but just never. Yeah, I any the ones that came after like Macaulay Culkin, I was just kind of like, I don't have an interest in it. I feel like he makes those movies, so um,
Yeah.
he makes those movies like what I don't know. It's like I can't think of Home Alone without thinking of like Macaulay Culkin's character. It's like not or even the other characters. But yeah, those are
Mhm.
probably two that come to mind. I mean, there's several. There's so many that I also just like. I feel like I really enjoy around that time. But those are always like my go-to anytime anyone asks. But what about you? What are your go-to holiday or Christmas movies that you like?
Well, I mean, Die Hard's obviously one of
Yeah,
them.
Die
The
Hard's a
first
fun
one.
one. I do like Die Hard.
I actually because it's been a long time since I saw it, but I remember really liking It's a Wonderful Life.
That's a good one. It's also
Um,
been a while since I've seen that one.
yeah, and then the other one I'd seen about maybe a year or two ago. It was around the holidays. I was watching it with my grandma. Miracle on 34th Street, the original, not the remake they did with Richard Attenborough.
Oh,
So
nice.
like the
Yeah,
original with
yeah. I know there's a lot of versions of that one, but that's yeah.
yeah. But yeah, no, that's a pretty good one. And yeah, it got nominated for Best Picture. I think George Seaton directed. I could be wrong, but anyways. But yeah, no, that's just some of the holiday films. I guess the only Christmas memory I could think of outside of that in terms of movies was uh, we tried watching Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer one time when
hmm
because we watched it as a kid, my brother and I growing, as little kids, and we loved it. And then we watched it as adults, and we're like, "Wow, Santa's a dick," like Santa's a real asshole, especially with all the reindeer, and then they're telling the elves are telling the one who wants to be a dentist. I can't remember his name, but they're like, "Oh yeah, you can't be a dentist. You got to make toys." And it's like, do none of you have health insurance whatsoever? It's like, okay, um, but yeah. So I just found it funny. So,
Yeah, no, that's
anyways,
fun.
but
That's
yeah,
also one I have not seen in a while. So I wonder if I'd watch it and also be like, man, Santa was an asshole. so
yeah, he is. Even just throw on the clips, and you're like, yeah, he is a dick. But anyways, so yeah, so enough about the questions. We're jumping into our discussion for About a Boy. Once again, this won't be a beat by beat bulletin presentation like you hear on other channels, but we will be discussing major spoilers for our discussion on this 2002 film. If you haven't seen it yet and want to hear our full thoughts on it, watch the film first and then come back to hear us talk about it. It's also on Amazon if anyone's interested in paying like $4 for rental. That's what I did, and it's probably on other streaming sites. I don't know, but that was the only one I could find the quickest. I was like, all right, I know it's on Amazon. Let me check there. Boom, got it. Because how this whole thing was scheduled, as I said
I
just
did the
a little
exact same
before,
thing. So
it's just like just try to watch it as soon as I can, or at least the earliest I can, and then was like, okay, finish the movie. Now we got to start the podcast
no,
recording.
I'm
So
sure Amazon appreciates the like what if it was like $4, the $8 they got from two customers for About a Boy today. Because I also got it off Amazon when I rewatched it this morning. So
oh, nice, cool. Um, so yeah, we'll get into a bit of a quick production history for this. There's not a whole lot I could find offhand. It almost feels like for with some of these other films, especially around this time, it's a little bit easier to find some of the production notes by going online and looking up videos and such. But I guess most of whatever behind the scenes stuff is on there is on the Blu-ray, which I didn't grab a hold of a copy of. So sorry. If there was more information out there or even more interesting stories that I could have told, but this is what I was able to find. So, after the success of American Pie back in 1999, Paul Weitz and Chris Weitz teamed up again to co-write and direct Nick Hornby's coming-of-age novel into a feature film about a boy. Originally, the main character, Will Freeman, was supposed to be played by none other than Brad Pitt, but turned down the role as it was implausible for an attractive man like him would have to lie that he's a single parent to get women. He's also in hot water for other things right now. We won't get into in the show for various reasons. Also, this was originally pitched to be translated for the U.S. to have George Clooney to play the lead role, which I find very strange. Again, it's like another case of like, come on, George Clooney. It's like, except everyone's mom in the world except mine wants to be with Clooney, I assume, or at least around this time. So anyways, yeah. So the film About a Boy was released on May 17th, 2002 in the United States, and on a production budget of $30 million, made over $130.5 million worldwide. Now, outside of its commercial success and its lone writing nod at the Oscars, which I cannot wait for us to talk about and get into the juicy details for that category, the film gained multiple nominations, including 2 Golden Globe nominations for film in the comedy musical category and lead actor comedy musical category for Hugh Grant. It also got a Critics' Choice nomination for Nicholas Hoult and Best Young Actor/Actress Performance, an American Cinema Editors nomination for Comedy Musical category, 2 BAFTA nominations for Adapted Screenplay and Supporting Actress for Toni Collette, and a WGA nomination for Adapted Screenplay as well. The film was also mentioned in the American Film Institute's AFI's top 10 list of best films in 2002, alongside Best Picture nominees Chicago, Gangs of New York, The Hours, and The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. Now, since the film's release, About a Boy was also adapted into a canceled 2-season series for NBC that lasted from February 2014 to July 2015. And on top of that, I should also mention that the writer, the author of the book, Nick Hornby, has also become a successful screenwriter in his own right. I'm pretty sure on the top of my head, I know he did Brooklyn, which got himself an adapted screenplay nomination. I think he also did An Education, but I could be wrong.
I think you're right there. I also should probably check that because I like Nick Hornby. He's written quite a few, I think, at this point.
Yeah, so he's 2 Oscar nominations for adapted screenplay for An Education and Brooklyn, and he's done his own fair share of novels as well. He did High Fidelity, which was turned into a feature film.
Yeah, I was about to mention that one.
He's done a fair amount, and he's also done some writing too. And I forgot he also did do Wild as a screenwriter with
Reese Witherspoon.
Reese Witherspoon, and directed by the late Jean-Marc Vallée. But yeah, that was a good movie. It's been so long since I've seen it, but I remember liking enough of it. So, anyways, back to the movie that we're talking about. So the log line for About a Boy regards Will Freeman, who attends a single parents meeting to woo women. Ends up meeting Marcus, a troubled 12-year-old boy. And as they become friends, Will learns to be responsible while he helps Marcus with his studies, and ends up becoming, a bit of like, you're not really growing, even when you grow up, you're not really out of your kid phase, so to speak. And that's essentially what the film is about, in short. So I'm curious to know, Saleah, why was it? I'm always fascinated, with the picks, 20th century women and
Yeah.
this one. I am curious to know with this one, what was the reason for choosing this one as your choice to come back on for a podcast episode, outside of me asking and pleading nicely if you'd be able to come on as a last-minute replacement.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny because I did kind of choose this as like a fast pick. I think I just kind of looked at the list and be like, oh, which one would I want to like rewatch or do or not? But I mean, About a Boy has always been one of my favorite movies, honestly. I mean, it's funny. I've rewatched it a few times like over the last few years since I first saw it, which I didn't see it when it first came out because I think I would have been like super young. But I remember watching it in high school thinking like, oh, this was actually really cute. Like, it's just like a very heartwarming movie. Like, I don't know, it's very just like innocent. It's very feel good, without being like too. I mean, I guess it could be, but I just felt like, I don't know. I just remember really liking it. I thought Grant was great in it, and I just remember thinking I just also really liked the writing of it too. I just thought all the characters were really interesting, and yeah, I thought Hugh Grant and Nicholas Hoult, who it's so funny that Nicholas Hoult kind of just has become so famous since then and has had a really interesting career trajectory since then. And it just looks like it's so funny. But yeah, it's always been one of my favorite movies, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna rewatch this. Would love to talk about it. So yeah, that was my I guess that was my choice. Aside from yes, having to make a quick decision on which movie I wanted to talk about.
Yes, and once again, thank you very much for doing that. Because like I said, I was like, I gotta find someone who could do like a last minute recording, and I'm like, I think Saleah might be able to do it. Is she going? Is she busy? Does she have any festivals to go to? All right, perfect. Um, but jokes aside, so yeah, this is my first viewing.
Hmm.
As I've already said countless times for these episodes, unless noted, just assume that these are first viewings for me. But yeah, no, this was a first viewing for me. I hadn't seen much of Hugh Grant as an actor. I think really the only
Interesting.
big role I could think of was maybe Dungeons and Dragons. Unfortunately, I have not seen the Paddington films, especially Paddington 2.
Oh, he's so
But I
funny
will,
in that. That's funny. I'm
yeah.
surprised. I mean, it's funny because I felt like this. And sorry, I didn't mean to like because I was gonna say
No,
with
no,
you,
no, go
Grant,
ahead.
because I know he's known. I mean, I know his thing is like, oh, he's kind of like the rom com guy. Like he's in a lot of like rom coms, and that's his thing. And I guess in a way, this also had like a rom com element. But I will say, like, I actually think this is one of my more favorite roles of his in terms of like, I don't know, some of his characters he either plays like just like a very one dimensional character, and I felt like this character, I think out of all the ones he's played, like it had that element of like the Hugh Grantness that you see in some of the other movies that he's been in, but then this one I felt like had more depth to it, but it's still very like Hugh Granty, which I guess if you haven't seen some of his other movies, then maybe it wouldn't make sense. But that's like his whole thing. I feel like he has like a thing that he does in his movies, but this was probably one of my more favorite roles of his. So.
Yeah, I actually forgot I had Miles on to talk about Glass Onion, and even though it was a cameo for that
Oh
role,
yeah, that's right. I almost forgot about
he
that too until it was mentioned. So yeah.
yeah, but it's still yeah, no, but he does have like a niche of like limited, not that he isn't talented. He is
Yeah,
talented. It
yeah,
just either he chooses to be that way or that's, what his agent picks, or I don't know who makes his decisions for all I know.
yeah,
But it is one of those things where it's like, yeah, he fits that role really well. And at the time, he did Four Weddings and a
yeah.
Funeral.
Hmm.
He had done Sense and Sensibility. So like a fair, even Restoration, which has done like a fair amount of like British,
Yeah.
productions. I'm also reading here he was in Remains of the Day, which holy crap, that's nuts. And I forgot he was in Maurice, which was another British romantic film,
Yeah,
although it
he's in a
was
lot of those kind of like, it's funny. I will say, I don't know if you've seen it, just kind of like a quick side thing, but I guess it's also
yeah,
kind of relevant, but have you seen the trailer for Heretic, that new like A24 horror movie?
Heretic. Let me look it up.
We should check it out after because it looks like they're wanting him to play some sort of like creepy like bad guy, and
Oh
I'm like
yeah.
interesting. I mean, it's funny because like I saw the trailer. I think when I forgot what I saw it with, but I saw the trailer this past weekend, and I think when I saw another movie earlier this month, and I was just thinking like interesting that they're like putting Hugh Grant in an A24 movie. Like I wouldn't think that that would be a thing. So it'll be interesting to see like if he's able to kind of because like even in Paddington 2, like I know you haven't seen it, but he obviously plays more of a comedic villain than like a serious one. So it'd be interesting to see like
Diabolical villain.
yeah, so it'd be interesting to see if he like takes a more serious turn here since we kind of know him to be more of like I feel like his roles have always been like like not super dramatic by any means. So yeah, but that was just like a side thing I remember thinking like, oh, I just saw him in the trailer for a Heretic pretty recently. So
Yeah, I actually forgot that existed because I think I was watching some of it and I'm like, just in case, I'll just put off to the side, because when it comes to A24 films in particular, I try to not watch too many of the trailers, especially the Oscar contender ones, where I'm like, I try wanting to go in as little knowing as possible.
yeah, that makes sense
Um,
because sometimes they
you know,
do. It's really hit or miss with the trailers. Because I mean, I generally
yeah.
like A24 movies, but I know sometimes they give away a lot, and I'm just like, I just want to watch the movie when it comes out. So
Yeah, and now we're unfortunately in an era where it's like we're if you go to the theaters, you're gonna see Gladiator 2 all the time for trailers. You're gonna see now you won't be able to anymore, but Deadpool Wolverine was like in front of like every movie,
Yeah, A Quiet Place
and
date. The Quiet Place prequel was also like I remember seeing that one
yeah,
all the
day
time.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one I remember. A lot of people on my social media feed were like, "Oh God, another Quiet Place trailer! Like, could we stop with this?" And then now I'm hearing like, "Oh, we're getting like the new Robert Zemeckis Here trailer," and I'm like, "Oh, enough of this." Uh, so yeah, but anyway, so back to our movie. Yeah, so this was my first viewing. I enjoyed it. I didn't give it a rating yet, just because I want to hear a bit more of our discussion to see where I land on it a bit. But I did enjoy the film overall. I thought it worked well enough because of the cast involved.
Hmm.
You're right. You're absolutely right, though. Hugh Grant and Nicholas Hoult have really good chemistry. And even at a young age, Nicholas Hoult was actually a good actor. And I always mention this on on the show, and even on other shows I've guest starred on. Paul Weitz and Chris Weitz, they really are two really solid enough directors to where they're actually able to get a decent, good, or at least a good enough kid performance
Hmm.
out of it. Because I've always complained about on films that even the greatest filmmakers in the world just cannot direct kid actors
Yeah,
well.
I think we talked about
And
that during 20th Century Women because the
I
character
think we did too.
was at least a teen and young on the younger side. But that was also a performance that was like I think also really good. But that's funny. Like both the movies I've
Yeah.
chosen have had some sort of like adolescent child storyline
And and
coming of
and
age.
yeah, there's a bit of like a drift between the mother and the son.
Hmm.
Yeah, it may. It does this sound like a therapy session for you, Saleah?
Yeah, no.
Because
Hey,
because
these are like for it's like the main characters I don't relate to. I just I don't know. Maybe I just gravitate towards those movies. I am a big coming of age fan, and I know like in a way like when there's like a younger like kind of teen
yeah.
movie that in a way like, it's interesting because I did feel like About a Boy kind of has a lot of different elements. Like I kind of mentioned, it has kind of it almost feels like there's some like rom-commy stuff with like Hugh Grant's character when he's like trying to like get it like date and he's like this womanizer, but then you also have like Nicholas Holt's character who's obviously going through a lot, which I think
Yeah.
is one of the reasons I loved it. Like I thought it worked in terms of like I love how you have kind of like it's obviously from the perspective of both of them because I know you have like what he's like Hugh Grant is narrating at one point and Nicholas Holt is narrating at one point. I love how it kind of came together. So, but yeah, it's just funny how the movies that I've chosen just kind of have this like, yeah, kind of similar themes, I guess.
And yeah, ideas. You're right. And the one thing I was actually worried about when it started was I think I got a little bit of a hint beforehand, like, oh yeah, this is gonna be like dual narration, and I'm like, how the hell are they gonna do that? And then I realized as the film went on, I'm like, oh, okay, all right, I can get behind this. Because when it started, I'm like, uh-oh, this may not turn out good. Like, please don't suck. And then, but no, like even the way that they wrote the boy, because I could be like a conspiracy theorist with what I'm about to say. I have a feeling that the Hugh Grant narration was written by the Paul Weitz and Chris Weitz. And Peter Hedges, who also I'm not sure if I could be. I just want to double check real quick. Paul Hedges, yes. So Paul Hedges is the son, is not the son, the father of Oscar-nominated actor Lucas
Oh
Hedges.
right, yeah.
Uh, and I wonder if Peter Hedges had took inspiration from his own, dealings as a father and taking, like what his kids are going through and such, and put a little bit of that into how he's writing the dialogue of the kid. Because obviously it is based off the book, and when you're adapting a novel or whatever the source material is,
Yeah.
you want to make sure that you're adding your own input
No, of
into the
course.
story
Yeah.
so it has a bit more of a human touch to it rather than just feel so artificial and
Yeah.
just bland. And I wonder if that's what happened in terms of how they were creating some of the narration for these characters. But it still works out fairly well, and yeah, and it's a good it is a good movie, and I think all the actors in it are good, and I was hell, I was even surprised that Rachel Weisz was in it. And
Yeah.
this was
Yeah. I
like
love how she kind of pops up in that like kind of second towards the second to third end of the movie. She's yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
Toni Collette I think is probably one of the like best performances in there in terms of that, playing that mother. So I mean, Toni Collette's also one of my favorite actresses, so it's always great to see her in things.
Yeah, she was robbed for Hereditary
Absolutely,
for a
yeah. No,
nomination.
I agree.
Yeah, just like oh God, yeah, that's another rant we can go on. And I'm not even the biggest fan of that movie, and even I'm like, yeah, no, she should have gotten in, guys. What the hell? But yeah, no, Toni Collette's really good. I did like speaking of Toni Collette though, I did like the little funny gag that I just went right over my head when I started it. Maybe it was because I was in a daze because I had a long day today. But when Nicholas Hoult earlier in the film talked about how, if he was that boy, Haley Joel Osment, he would make a lot of money, but he's not. And I'm like, oh yeah, that was a
Oh, she
connection
was.
to Sixth
Yeah, that's
Sense.
right. That's so funny. It's funny because I was just thinking while we were talking. I'm like, oh yeah, I really liked her in Sixth Sense too. Even though it's kind of like she always, I feel like she plays these mothers that are like, have a lot of problems. But yeah, that is
Yeah.
funny. I actually forgot about that line, and I had just also rewatched it. But that's funny.
Yeah. So before I did want to ask also what were some things for you personally that you really connected with, because I know you went through like a generalization, but were there any specific moments in the film that for you really stood out to you or has always stood out to you since you've said you've watched this
Yeah.
plenty of times?
I mean, there's a lot of really moments in the movie I really like, it's particularly towards like the end. I think I really just love the whole like talent show thing. I actually really love the like fake song they created for the movie too. It's just kind of like a fun Christmas song. But it's funny because the scene I think that always stands out to me, and it's like probably one of the more unserious moments in the movie, is the it's the scene where Hugh Grant's character is on that date with the mom, and then Nicholas Holt is there, and that's like the first time they're really hanging out together. And then he accidentally kills that duck with the bread. Like, I don't know why, but that scene always cracks me up every single time I watch it because it's just absolutely ridiculous. And that being kind of their first time that they're really like hanging out alone without like Toni Collette's character is just like ridiculous. I just think it's funny, and like the whole interaction with like the I guess the park security guard or whoever that guy was, who's like, man, I have to. He's like, I just think it's funny. He's like trying to like get him in trouble, and then Hugh Grant comes up with this whole lie, and then he's just like, man, now I have to go in and like wait and get it, and that's it. I just think it's like it's such a funny little ridiculous moment in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was actually good, and I like that was the connection for the two of them. It felt genuine
It
too,
did. It did.
and I like that it was, because like I said, the one thing I was a little bit worried about going into the movie, and I'm like, how are they going to handle this relationship or the friendship between the two of them?
Yeah.
And I liked it. I thought it was very sincere and sweet, and I did like the talent show because usually when we get to those kind of moments in the film with the talent show, they usually become, I mean, the one thing I could think of just based off of what critics had said at the time. I remember Fist Fight was had a talent show scene, and it's like, okay, let's get to the inappropriate song of the movie or whatever, and just it's all just about cursing and all that stuff, and it's like that's the joke. And no, I like that they were like, no, we're actually gonna have we're gonna have a song in the movie that ties into the movie, that can be a bit humorous, but we're doing it as a way of teaching a lesson to these characters about coming out of their shell a bit, and I like that aspect of the film, even with the Hugh Grant grabbing the guitar. And when he did, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot he had a guitar, and he does know how to play the music the instrument. Because that's something I tried doing a couple times, and I'm like, nope, this ain't working, Um, but yeah, no, that was good. And then yeah, you're right. The fake Christmas song. I keep forgetting that was a fake Christmas song because I'm like, did they created it for the movie or was that actually, you know, already made
Yeah.
up and
Like,
they're
I
like,
mean, it
oh yeah,
sounds like
yeah, we'll
it
just
could have been. Like, it definitely sounds like it could just be some like Christmas jingle that already existed. But I think it's interesting. I think it's. I've always thought it's interesting whenever movies create like actual music for a movie, like original music for a movie that's like part of the storyline. But yeah, that's one that
Mhm.
sounded like it could be a holiday jingle, and then it's like, nope, they created it for the movie. So
Yeah. And yeah, Hugh Grant, he's going back to him real quick. Yeah, he's good in the movie. obviously he does have some comedic moments that are funny, but there are also some dramatic
Yeah.
moments in the film that do work.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'm not saying like, oh yeah, this should have been nominated for a performance, and we'll get to the awards thing through the episode, but it, it really does show. Yeah, yeah, he does have some good acting chops in it, and apparently that shot of him when he's getting the Velcro shoes for the for Marcus for
Mm-hmm.
at the shoe store, and he looks at himself in the mirror after the woman calls him an old man. That was done on the fly. They randomly saw Hugh Grant looking at himself in the mirror, and the directors, without saying a word, they're like, all right, just quickly take a shot of this,
So funny.
and that's the take they use, and I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that. And yeah, it's just I'm while I'm looking through my notes, because I am a bit stumbling, because like I said, I just finished the movie. Um, any other moments in the film for you that stood out, or what would there be anything in the film that you would have liked to have seen done a bit better, or were there any flaws you noticed around this viewing,
I
or
don't know. It's funny because, like, I guess not. Maybe I don't know. Maybe as we're talking more, like, think of something, but I couldn't think of anything really. I mean, like, I just really love this movie. So I think there isn't like a ton. Like, I mean, in terms of like the characters and the performances, I feel like are some of the strongest parts of the movie. So, um, yeah, I don't have anything that I would change. I don't know. Like I said, as we're talking, maybe I'll like be like, wait, I missed that because I
yeah,
also just watched it today and could have like, missed that it's also been a long day on my end. So yeah, who knows?
yeah.
As we're processing the movie, maybe I'll think of something. But nothing else. No other scenes. I mean, there's like so many great moments in it, but nothing. Like I said, the duck scene is one that just like anytime anyone asks me what my favorite scene or what stands out to me in that movie, I'm like, yeah, it's that duck scene. It's just so funny to me.
Speaking of the duck scene, I thought it was funny. Right before he chucked the bread in, Hugh Grant pulls out the big thing of bread, and he's like, "It looks pretty good." And Marcus goes, "No, it doesn't. It's healthy."
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that was good.
Yeah.
And the other what actually the other thing, there's a couple things in the film as I'm looking through my notes right now on my phone. I actually forgot about was I always hate the liar reveal in films,
Oh,
especially in romantic comedies.
that makes
I
sense.
always
Yeah.
hate that because it's such a used trope, and whenever the lie is revealed or whatever, and there's like this moment where the characters are like, okay, now we got to have them separate and drag on, and not really do much to advance the story, and it's just dragging and dragging, and then we get to the finale where they're like, oh, okay, let's get back together or whatever. I always hate that, and I'm glad they were able to get it out of the way, especially when Marcus finds out, that Will doesn't have a kid. And it was
Yeah.
even funny when he came over to his house the first time, and Will asked, "Don't you have homework or something?" He goes, "Yeah,
Yeah.
you want to help me?" And I'm like, "Okay, that's pretty good."
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just even the script from a relationship dynamic viewpoint, or at least understanding who these characters are. I like that they're able to establish the complexities again with the mother and son, but also I like that they're doing a good enough job with establishing the mindset of Will. Yes, he is a snarky prick. He doesn't want to have a family, so to speak. But at the same time, he's aware of it and makes full honesty about it. And it was even funny the fact that his first date that he goes on with a single mother ends up being the place where it's like, oh, let's get into this sick mindset of like, oh, let
Yeah.
me try to
Try
date
to
all these
trap.
single
Yeah.
women. And on top of that, it's the single mother who says, "Oh, I'm sorry, this relationship just isn't going anywhere. We're gonna have to call it off." When usually it's the other way around for
Yeah.
him. Um, and I thought that was like, oh yeah, that is kind of refreshing a bit. I'm looking through the other thing I forgot now that it's like 2024 now is smoking is allowed in public restaurants, back then. I mean, I don't know how it is in the United Kingdom
Yeah,
or
I was gonna
wherever
say
the story is set.
I don't either. They might be a little bit maybe lax when it comes to like smoking, but yeah, that was a while ago, so who knows?
Yeah. I think bars, or at least some bars, still allow smoking, but
I mean, some bars that
in the
I
United
have
States,
been to, at least when I was in college, still allowed it. So I'm like, there's definitely areas places, maybe different states that still do. But
yeah.
it's always interesting seeing those
And
things in movies, though.
oh yeah, totally, yeah. Because if nothing else, it's a time capsule to
Exactly,
be like,
exactly.
okay,
It's
like
like,
this is where we were, and so many years ago, um, or this is what it's like to be in New York City.
yeah, in like the early 2000s or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And looking through, and yeah, the other aspect about it I also want to bring up, they tie Frankenstein, the movie,
Oh
into the
yeah,
story.
yeah, with the whole like
About
loneliness. Yeah.
how, yeah, the loneliness. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the loneliness and how they essentially he turned the boy into this like charming, kid, and he's gonna be fine on his own, and and yeah, like it's a good movie, and I think it does a good job addressing some of these issues. The fact that we're not able to fix everything with a snap, and that there are some things that a person has to go through on their own, and there's not much else that we could do except support them and make sure that they get through into a better place. Especially with Fiona, the Tony Collette's character. And I thought that was interesting, and especially well, in handled under worse under lesser talented filmmakers could have been a disaster.
Yeah.
But the fact that Paul Weitz and Chris Weitz, who they were pretty, they got something, they got a good enough movie together. And it's funny that this is now, I think at the time this was like their third movie to get at all, because I'm looking through here. Chris Weitz was uncredited director on American Pie, and then they co-directed Down to Earth, and About a Boy was their third directorial achievement together. And then Chris Weitz has gone on to do other things. I wouldn't necessarily say better, but other things. Golden Compass he directed, the Twilight Saga, New Moon. He directed Damien Bashir into a lead actor nomination at the Oscars. And yeah, and then Paul Weitz. I'm actually curious to see. I'm looking through here real quick for Paul Weitz, what he's done. Cirque du Freak, In Good Company. So yeah, not a whole lot he's done. That's noteworthy. Paul Weitz, that is, and. But yeah, like I said, they've done directing. They've directed other things. But yeah, no. It's just all it takes is just a really talented, a good enough story and enough passion and creativity and a good enough crew behind it to tell an interesting story. And I think this was a good film in my opinion. If we're I don't know. Is there any other final thoughts you had on the film itself, or any other notes you wanted to bring up for it for this film?
Nope. I don't think so. I feel like we talked a good amount about like at least the themes and everything. So
Yeah. Like I said, it's a good movie. I'd recommend it for sure. It's one that I was glad I definitely saw, and I would like to see more of Hugh Grant in films. If nothing else, I definitely need to see the Paddington films. I
yeah,
know he's only in two, but that's part
yeah,
of the reason why I haven't seen the second one. Is like I want to watch the first one first, and then watch the second one.
yeah. Which they are fun
There will be
movies. I like the Paddington movies. So when you do decide to watch them, I think I don't know, they're just like kind of fun, enjoyable movies.
Yeah. We'll do like a live watch along of them if we have time, but yeah, but we'll see. So yeah, like I said, good movie. I would recommend it for sure. And yeah, so getting into the Oscar, down to the business at hand, which is I think the one of the more interesting discussions I think we might have about this Oscar race. About a Boy only got in for adapted screenplay at the Oscars. Did you think that the film was worthy of its nomination? And would you have given it other category nominations?
Yeah, no, I definitely do. I mean, I really, like I said, I love this movie. I think I really love the writing of it, of the characters. I actually also have read the book. I just haven't, it's been a while since I read it, but
Oh,
I felt like it was a really good, because I do also like Hornby. But I felt like this movie was like, at least from when I watched it back in high school, I remember it being like really, It's funny because I watched the movie first and then I read the book because I love the movie so much around the time, and I haven't reread the book since. But I remember it being like I was like pretty impressed with how faithful it was to the movie. I know sometimes people are like, oh, the movie, what? There's that whole argument with what's better, but I actually felt like they were both equally really great. But yeah, in terms of like, I think the screen, like the this as a screenplay, like it definitely felt like it deserved its nomination. I did not have time to do research on like what else got nominated around that time. So I bet you probably did, which
That's
great.
okay. I did.
But in terms of like other, I mean, it might have been like if it was like a really competitive year. I mean, because I do actually feel like some of the performances were really good. Like, um, because I will actually say this because like I know I was talking a lot about Hugh Grant before. I actually feel like this was probably one of Hugh Grant's like better or best performances just out of everything that I've seen of his. So I could have maybe seen him get like a best. I would. It would have been cool to see him get like a best actor nomination, though. Again, and I think if that year was really competitive, probably would have been hard, especially for I know sometimes comedies it's like a little bit harder. Also really
Yeah.
liked, yeah. And in terms of other stuff, I mean, maybe also Toni Collette. Like I know she wasn't in it as much, but even just like I don't know. I feel like I love Toni Collette and everything. I'm like you can nominate her for every movie she's in, and she is so it's that because she had some really great moments in there, especially kind of the more dramatic side of the movie. So, yeah, I feel like maybe just more so on the performance side, if anything. Oh, also this actually music too. Now that we're talking about it, because that would have been interesting if it had gotten like with even though I know it's just kind of like a simple Christmas song, it's like that's still like fun. I know sometimes Oscars usually, I feel like the Oscars usually don't go for stuff like that, but even just like that could have been like a fun nomination, I guess.
Well, I agree with you. By the way, I think the adapted screenplay nomination was totally warranting. I thought that was a pretty deserving nod. I'm looking through. You'll get a kick out of some of these categories. You're like, oh, okay, that makes sense as to what happened there. So original song, because I actually talked about this on another podcast years ago about Gangs in New York.
Hmm.
Lose Yourself from 8 Mile won Best
Okay,
Song.
that year, that I think
Um,
it was probably always gonna go to that probably.
Well, and I remembered The Hands That Built America. It won the Golden Globe, but but Critics' Choice went to Lose Yourself, and we didn't have many precursors to rely on. So the fact that 8 Mile Lose Yourself won was a big surprise, and was like, okay, one of many examples as to why the Academy just did not like Gangs of New York at all.
Well,
Like it
that's
got 10
true. That is
nominations,
true.
and there was no
They're
wins.
like
It couldn't even get
none for Marty.
song. Yeah, no for Marty. We'd rather give it to the pedophile than give it to Marty. Um, and I still think that his only chance that Marty ever got at winning an Oscar was for the one that he ended up getting. Like he had no shot at any other year. Sorry guys, but that's the honest to truth. And if you want proof, Kills of the Flower Moon went home with nothing.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, and so yeah, so adapted screenplay. About a Boy was nominated alongside some pretty good nominations. I would say Adaptation was another one. Chicago, The Hours, and the Oscar ended up going to The Pianist.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I remember that year because then Adrian Brody also won Best Actor that
Yep.
year. So yeah, I remember that year. I remember that year.
Yeah.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
were also. That is also. It's funny. I feel like it's easy to say that for every year, being like, oh, there's lots of strong contenders, but there were a lot of strong, I guess, movies that year. I do remember. It's funny now that you mention it because I was gonna look it up before and then just didn't have time before I jumped on. But I remember that year. I mean, one because I think it's like the whole. I know Adrian Brody like kissed Halle Berry to all that stuff, but in
Yeah.
terms of like
That was unfortunate.
yeah, but I mean, I feel like that was one of the unfortunately things I think people remember from that like telecast of it. But yeah, no, in terms of the movies too, I remember that like year of movies too. So that's interesting. Yeah, that's a pretty like competitive, crowded category for screenplay that year.
Yeah, and even lead actor was also competitive too because you had Nicolas
Yeah.
Cage, Michael Caine, which was in a movie that no one saw, or at least not publicly, except Academy voters. They're like, "Oh yeah, we love Michael Caine."
Which movie
Christopher
was that again?
Hampton's The Quiet American.
Okay, yeah, I didn't watch
Yeah, and
that.
then it was like, yeah, exactly,
So
yeah,
it's funny that you're
and
like, because I want to be like, did I watch it? I'm like, nope.
yeah, 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 yeah,
It
exactly,
tracked with
yeah,
your statement.
yeah. Even you didn't see it. Don't lie to me. And Christopher Hampton co-wrote it. And, he was like, Dangerous Liaisons, and it would end up, winning another Oscar for The Father. And then Daniel Day-Lewis for Gangs of New York, and Jack Nicholson about Schmidt, and Adrian Brody won. And yeah, it was like I remember looking up at the time. Obviously, you're right. Yes, the Academy does not like comedic performances in at Oscars. Apparently, they just do not like it. Um, because even Adam Sandler couldn't even get in for Uncut Gems, which is a damn
Right.
shame because that
Yeah.
would have been really good. But I also think though that like looking back at the time, it's like I think it was going to be Adrian Brody's Oscar just because
Yeah.
again, Gangs of New York they didn't like the Gangs of New York. Also, we saw with Lily Gladstone. I am now convinced that unless your film is that strong, to where it's like, oh, it's going to win Best Picture, like Silence of the Lambs or The Godfather.
Yeah.
If they, if the performance is that memorable and the film is strong overall, then the Academy doesn't give a shit about category confusion. They're like, whatever, screw that. Like, we're still giving you the Oscar for this because it was like that for Timothy Hutton for Ordinary People,
That's
where it
right.
was like
Yeah.
category fraud easily, but there was no way he was going to win the lead because he was up against Raging Bull for De Niro. Marlon Brando was another one, Anthony Hopkins, and it's like, man, it just feels like you need to be like like the first build or like main lead of the film to win your Oscar. Otherwise, you just got to have a strong movie. And I found out about a couple of weeks ago that Gangs of New York, Daniel Day-Lewis was only second build, and yet I remember it does kind of feel like a co-lead performance than supporting, if I'm being honest. But I do wonder if there was some category confusion. But I mean,
Yeah.
the performance is strong. He's really good in a movie is a production hell. Um, but it was a worthy win for sure for Adrian Brody, um, and obviously Day Lewis deserved the nomination, and he's probably my runner up. But yeah, it's just like, and what was even stranger about the adapted screenplay lineup that year is that they gave I remember they gave the Golden Globe that year to About Schmidt, which wasn't even. I don't even think it was an adapted screenplay. Oh no, it was. It was an adapted screenplay. So the Golden Globes gave About Schmidt the Golden Globe screenplay win.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't even nominated the Oscars. They gave Critics' Choice to. I'll look this up in a minute, but I know Writers Guild went to The Hours, and then the BAFTA went to the adaptation. And The Pianist didn't win any of the major televised prizes. And usually, if you don't win those, you're probably not going to win the Oscar unless your film is that strong. Like, I think the last one to do that was like maybe 12 Years a Slave, but at least that won Critics' Choice. It was a Best Picture frontrunner. And, like, even though and that year in of itself, if that had been nominated, if that was even eligible for the WGA, I think it easily would have beaten Captain Phillips that year at least.
Mm-hmm.
But I just it's just so strange. And Ronald Harwood, who's the writer of The Pianist, he was a previous Oscar nominee for The Dresser, and finally got back to the stage with The Pianist, and he won the Oscar. Um, yeah, but yeah, it's just kind of tough for a movie like About a Boy to
Yeah.
get into outside of just adapted screenplay. And one thing I even mentioned on my Crocodile Dundee episode, and I think on another episode too, is that I think what also helped get it that lone screenplay nod was the commercial success it had.
Mm-hmm.
Enough people remembered it, and it had Robert De Niro attached to the film as a producer,
Yeah.
which
That's
actually
right.
could explain what that actually could explain a lot why the Paul Weitz and Chris Weitz were asked to direct Little Fockers
All right.
because
That's so
they also
funny.
directed that
Yeah.
piece of shit movie. I did not see any of those
That's
Fockers
hilarious.
movies. So, but Jane Rosenthal and Robert De Niro produced that film, and they produced About a Boy. But yeah, that's the only thing I can think of that could make sense as to like why they uh why they were hired for that movie. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh well, now you got your Oscar nod. Now
Yeah.
here's your end of the bargain. The devil has come to collect his due. Unfortunately, but yeah. But other than that, though, yeah, I don't really have any other category mentions. I would probably give About a Boy. Like I said, adapted screenplay feels
Yeah.
just
That's probably the
right,
yeah.
and I'm really glad that Nicholas Hoult went on to be a pretty solid actor in his own right. You know, he's been in the X-Men films, which are now officially done with Fox. I'm sorry, 20th Century Studios now. Um, and he was fantastic in The Favorite.
Yeah, he was great. It's probably my favorite character. It's in that movie. That's so funny.
And then he's got I'm looking through right
He's
now.
also in. I just have to watch because I rewatched Fury Road recently after watching Furiosa,
Yes,
and he was in that. He's played some interesting. Like I feel like it's funny how he's kind of had this trajectory of playing kind of these like wacky characters. The favorite, and then yeah, even Fury Road. There's been some others I feel like I've seen since then, but
Warm Bodies.
oh yeah, the zombie. Yeah. Speaking of rom
Yeah,
coms.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. God, he is. And Token, I think he had like a love interest with Lily Collins. I
Oh
didn't see
yeah,
the
I didn't see
movie.
that either. Oh, I did see Renfield, the
Um,
one with I didn't love that movie, but him and Nicolas Cage, which is so funny because those are two actors who I feel like, yeah, they're kind of have taken this path of just playing all these like weird characters, and the fact that they were put in together. But that was one that I had also watched. Oh, and I think he is supposed to. Is he supposed to be in? Oh no, maybe he wasn't in it. I think he's supposed to be in Nosferatu. I think. I mean, that movie
yep.
has a stacked cast, but I just remembered.
Yeah.
I also looked up his filmography, but also remember
Yeah.
seeing that before. So
Yeah, I'm curious to. I mean, that's a whole other situation, but I really am curious if that's going to play at any festivals. Like,
yeah, I
it's
haven't
it.
seen it being like announced at anything. So
Yeah, only because it's coming out. I think nationwide Christmas Day as of this recording.
yeah,
But I'm curious to see how. I'm actually even more curious to see what Focus Features is going to do about it. Like, is it just going to be a commercial kind of film, or is it just going to be just a you know uh, Oscar contender?
hmm
Because they got a couple of potential ones, and granted, we still have like another week until the festival start
yeah.
with Venice and such. But as of this recording, but I'm curious to see what Focus is going to do because they clearly have something on their hands. If Conclave doesn't hit, then they might have Nosferatu. But that's a whole
Guess we'll
other different
see.
story.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
But yeah, but no, Nicholas Hoult, really solid actor. Has been in some interesting films, and I look forward to seeing more of what he does next. So
Same, same.
yeah. So, anyways, that's pretty much all we got for this. It's a bit shorter than the last couple episodes because they felt like an hour or more than an hour because how much discussion we had. But I feel like we got enough here for what we have for About a Boy,
Yeah.
despite this being like a last minute.
No, I mean it's a pretty
Thank you.
short and sweet movie too. So I feel like there isn't. Luckily, I feel like it's not one of those movies where it's like too like deeply complex that you have to like unpack. I feel like everything, like even though it's like there's kind of some deeper themes there, it's not like I feel like it's one of those movies that are pretty straightforward with like, you know. So it's not there's not too much to like too much crazy stuff to like have to unpack. I feel like it's pretty straightforward and a sweet movie. So
Yeah. Just a nice movie, and it's something that I enjoy, and yeah. So once again, Saleah, I thank you once again for dedicating your time and being a hero for the show. So before we sign off, is there anything you'd like to plug in, or where our listeners can follow you along?
yeah, not much has changed since the last time in terms of following. You can follow me on Twitter or Letterboxd, same handle, Salele, which is just Saleyley. So yeah, same place.
Nice. Awesome. And you could follow me and the show through Linktree under at Matthew995, where you can follow along on all my social media accounts, such as Twitter and Letterboxd. On the same site, I've also provided a link for you to listen to more episodes for the show. And if you're interested in being in the hot seat, like Saleah has today, let me know, and hopefully we can arrange that happening soon. We're going to be going through a bit of a change up a bit with the podcasting, but I'll explain more about that as we reach to December. I've got a bit of big plans coming for the show, but again, you'll hear more about that in December. And I look forward to it because I've already had some things. I've got the ball rolling on that, and I really. I think it'll be good for the podcast. You'll know what I mean in December. So once again, Thank you guys for listening, and in the meantime, we hope you enjoyed listening to the episode, and we hope to see you at the movies. Take care, guys.